Well, hi everyone, and welcome to the webinar today, which is Next Level NetSuite Reporting. I'm your host for today, Alan Miles. Some of you might know me, others might not. So just wanted to give you a little bit of an introduction to what we'll be covering today. A bit about myself, first of all. So I'm the Commercial Director at Eureka Solutions. I've been with the company for almost 18 years now, and almost 13 of that I've worked with the NetSuite solution that we'll be talking about today. My background was in marketing, first of all, but I also worked in our support and implementation team and had a big focus on reporting at one time and did a lot of reporting set up in business intelligence, reporting for our customers. So I'm also now a heavy user of NetSuite for my role with managing the sales and marketing function here. So spend most of my day in NetSuite looking at reports and graphs and dashboards. So I wanted to share my perspective on that with you as well. So we've got quite a lot to cover today. We will have questions and answers at the end of the session. Please use the Q&A panel down the bottom to send in any questions that you have as we go. We'll also have a little poll just to get a bit of feedback on the session once we get to the end as well. The session is also being recorded, so we'll share that with everyone who attended and anybody who couldn't make it after the session as well. If you have any technical issues, please send us a message on the chat and we will have a look at that for you as well. And I should say thank you for joining us on such a lovely day as well. Appreciate you taking the time to listen to me and hear about all the reporting options within NetSuite. Now, first of all, just wanted to give you a bit of an explanation of why we decided to do this session today. So there's a few reasons there. First of all, we wanted to make sure that a lot of you have been using NetSuite for quite some time now, or a few months at least, and wanted to give a bit of a refresher or an update on what the options are for reporting, because there are, as you can see on the right-hand side, quite a lot of options there now for NetSuite users to choose from when you're looking at different reporting requirements. There's also quite a few of our customers who are users of NetSuite who are newer to NetSuite, so I want to make sure that the awareness is there of what options are available for you. We also invited a few people on who were considering NetSuite as a solution, so I want to provide an overall overview for anyone that's looking into NetSuite as a potential option, and also give a bit of clarity to what you get out of the box in terms of standard options with NetSuite versus optional modules that can be added on versus something that would require a third-party solution to achieve a particular requirement. Also, what you would potentially have seen from communications with NetSuite and even ourselves is there's a lot of acronyms out there for a lot of the solutions that are available within NetSuite, as you can see around the bottom of the diagram there. So NSAW, NSPB, NSAR, EPM, ODBC, what do they all mean? Hopefully today you'll get an idea of that from what I cover with you on the session. We'll also cover a little bit about AI as the buzzword at the moment. Everybody's talking about it, everybody's trying to get involved in it. But what does it mean in terms of the reporting options, especially in regards to the NetSuite solutions that we'll cover today? So the agenda that I'll run through then, we'll start off with those standard NetSuite reporting options covering reports, saved searches, scorecards, and also SuiteAnalytics workbooks. We'll then dive into some of the advanced options, which are either within NetSuite or within Oracle's tech stack. So that's things like the ODBC connector, the Analytics Warehouse, and Enterprise Performance Management. So you're starting to get a feel for some of those acronyms already from the agenda there. And then we'll touch on third-party options that are available as well, should any of these options that I'm talking about today not meet requirements. So I guess first of all, here's a NetSuite dashboard. This is the end result of everything we're going to be talking about today, is that you should end up with a dashboard like that. Hopefully everybody who uses NetSuite already has something that looks something like this. But this is just to highlight that this is an end result in terms of what you see once all the reports and searches and KPIs are all set up. Presents it in the interactive dashboard format, but it's actually coming from lots of different sources, which we'll dive into today, which relates to reports, saved searches, scorecards, and the analytics workbooks as well can all form part of your dashboard within the NetSuite solution. So we'll start off with that then. So standard NetSuite reports, these are all available to every NetSuite user out of the box, regardless of the version or edition that you're using. Every NetSuite customer has access to the reporting engine, saved searches, the scorecards that can be built as part of them, and also the SuiteAnalytics workbook feature, which I think is probably underused. We did do a session similar to this specifically on the analytics workbooks, and may do that again as a follow-up because it is quite a good area to look at. When I'm covering these today, we do have a lot to cover, so I won't go into too much detail or emphasize it isn't a training session, it's more of an awareness session in terms of understanding what the options are and what they can be used for. So we're happy to arrange follow-ups on any of these features as required. So first of all, just to give you a feel for the standard NetSuite reports, we can group these into lots of different categories. So first of all, you have your financial reports. So this is your traditional financial statements like your P&L, balance sheet, your budget versus actual reporting, producing a cash flow statement, which, bread and butter for any financial system. Whereas the NetSuite, in our humble opinion, does that a lot better than any other. These include pre-built templates out the box, which include comparative versions of the financial reports. They can be customized and you can have different layout formats, but generally they are used out of the box with a few tweaks, especially after go live. We will help customers with their financial report statements as part of the project. But you can have different versions of those as you expand the usage of NetSuite. You then have more generic reports, which can be split into summary reports. That allows you to do summarized figures with a drill down into the detail. So that would be things like looking at sales by customer, the quantity sold by item, revenue by project, that kind of idea of summarizing by a certain category, but then being able to drill down into the detail live into the report. We then have the concept of matrix reports, which are similar to the summary reports, but allow you to analyze the data more in a kind of pivot style, which will allow you to compare multiple dimensions at the same time. So rather than just looking at sales by customer, you might want to add a column, which would then split that by month or period or year, etc., or even by department or class or any of the other categorizations that you might use in the system. You then have the concept of detailed reports, and that allows you to go straight into the detail. Instead of summarizing it first of all, you'll be able to then go to a detailed list, which will include the information in columns from the record or transaction that you're reporting on at that time. And that means you can go straight into analysing the detail and the information within the transactions that form part of that report. Now, all of these reports can be customized and filtered and grouped differently, as you may know. And these are, obviously, as I say, bread and butter, out of the box reports that you get within a NetSuite system. What I wanted to do was just highlight how easy it is to create a new report. So I won't be doing any live demos today, but just to show you some of the information how quickly you can get to these reports. So if you go into the system and say you want to do a new report, you can create one in less than a minute if you know what you're looking for in this kind of style. So here what I've done, I've said I want to create a new report. I've said I want to report on the net amount of a transaction, which in this case is a sales transaction. And then you just pick which of those report types that you want to use. So is that a summary report, a detail report, or a matrix? And then how do you want to break down the information? So all I've done here is I want to see the sales amount summarized by the customer's name. You hit save or run report, and actually you've got a sales by customer report. Nice and easy. And then you can go into the configuration of that and add extra filters or information columns from there as well. So I wanted to pick out a few areas because I'm sure anybody who's using NetSuite already has used at least some of those reports before or even created their own reports. So I wanted to pick out a few bits of information that hopefully will give you an idea of some of the added value features that could be used when you're using these types of reports. So first one, you can create unlimited versions of reports for different purposes. So you're not restricted to the out-the-box reports, whether it's within the financial reports or the summary or detailed reports that we mentioned there within all the different categories in the system. So for example, you might want to create 3 different versions of the P&L report that give you different information for different statutory requirements versus your management account format. And that might just be different groupings or different filters or different ways of presenting the data. Or you might want to create a report that is the same report, but is filtered to specific departments or locations to allow you to share that with those specific the people within those departments, for example. There's also a great feature, which again I think is potentially underused, which is the multi-book feature. That can be enabled if you have what's called a one world account, which is your multi-entity, multi-subsidiary structure within NetSuite. Anybody who's bought a Suite Success edition of NetSuite will have access to that because they're one world enabled. What that allows you to do is to set up alternative accounting books. So when you're looking at your financial reporting, you can have different GL postings per accounting book. So the same transaction can have a different posted, can be posted to a different nominal code, depending on the accounting book that is set up behind the scenes. And they can also be posted in different currencies. So you see the use case for that is to automate reporting in different accounting standards. So if you need to report in IFRS for your local reporting, but you maybe have a parent company in the US who needs to say the same information but in US GAAP reporting, then you can use that to automate that and just make sure everything's posted there. And that also would allow you to produce that report in the relative currency, so US dollars in that example. Another feature that we see, which is part of the advanced financial management module, which most customers have access to within NetSuite, is the concept of statistical accounts. That allows you to track non-financial data using journals, and they can be posted per period by classification, so by class, department, location, subsidiary, etc. Typically used for things like headcount data or quantity of items sold or floor space if you're looking at kind of locations there. And that allows you then to combine that statistical data with financial data and allows you to create more specific KPIs and calculations within your reports. And then finally there, report snapshots. So on your dashboard, you can have trend graphs and other types of charts on there. You can create them from reports that you create yourself. So if you create a new report, like I mentioned before, for something like sales by customer in a certain format, then you can actually save that as what's called a report snapshot and then pull that onto your dashboard. So I've got some examples of these to show you now. What we have, first of all, just an example of using statistics in a financial report. So what we've done here is we've taken the standard P&L report. We've created a GL code called headcount, and every period or once a year, however often you want to do it, you can post a journal to say what the headcount was at that period in time. That can then be pulled through into your, in this case, the P&L report. So if you look at it by period, by department, everything will be broken down with the classifications that you post that journal to. So what we've said here, for the period that we've run this report, the headcount at the end of that period was 97, and we've then created a calculation that works out our profit or loss per head based on that headcount for that period. And that can be broken down by department, location, any of the classifications that you want to look at. We've also got the option to add custom segments in, so being able to add extra categorization, so you're not restricted to that class, department, location standard way of breaking down data. So in this case, we've added a sales channel classification, which means every transaction can be tagged with a sales channel, and that then allows us to slice and dice our reports. In this case, again, the P&L then is broken down by sales channel rather than the traditional classifications. And then the snapshot I mentioned, so in this example, we've done a sales by industry report, which is not one of the standard reports in the system. So we'll be able to run that report and see the data. But then we can say we want to create that as a snapshot, which creates a visualization of that, which we can add on to our dashboard in the format you can see there. So hopefully that gives you a feel for some of the more advanced things you can do, even just within the standard reporting options within NetSuite. So the next standard option I wanted to cover is Saved Searches. So in my opinion, and a lot of people's opinion probably, is one of the most powerful features of NetSuite, because there's so much you can do with Saved Searches. It's a great tool for lots of different things. So first of all, your dashboard reminders are generally powered by Saved Searches. You can create your own Saved Searches and therefore pull your own reminders onto the dashboard as well. Any list views that you see in the dashboard can be populated with Saved Searches using the criteria and the results that you format on those. But also to be able to have different sub-tab list views on records and transactions. So when you get into a customer, look at transactions, then you can have different views, which are all defined using Saved Search functionality. You can also use these for trend analysis. All you need to do is just create a Saved Search that maybe is, again, say sales by subsidiary or sales by department. And if you've got a date filter on there, then you can then pull that onto your dashboard and it will create a trend graph for you automatically. You can also go into a bit more detail in Saved Searches in terms of queries and formulas for the data that you're using. You can color code the lists, so it helps with highlighting exceptions or issues that need to be resolved, or just even highlighting new things that have been created or things that need to be followed up on using that color coding and highlighting. General exception reporting, just being able to, again, pull something onto the dashboard that shows things that need to be actioned. and also scheduling reports. You can schedule general reports in there, but the saved searches can be used for a bit more advanced scheduling for things like notifications when a new record is created or changed or meets a certain criteria. Then you can trigger an alert from a saved search to do that. Or you can just use it to distribute information, which we use pretty heavily internally here as well. You then are able to drive your KPI sections and scorecard sections of dashboards by setting up multiple save searches to populate them, which we'll cover in a second. And also some more advanced features there that the save searches can be used for defining workflow criteria. So if a workflow needs to be triggered at a certain point of time, you can use a save search to define the criteria for what that trigger is. And also to be able to populate information on records based on related information, maybe from subtabs or things that are related to that particular record. So one of the things we use in our system is that we populate a field on the customer record to show how many open cases we've got from a customer service point of view without having to look into the tabs to find that information. So it's just making it a lot easier to visualize, get a quick idea of what's happening with that customer in our case. So save searches are pretty straightforward to set up. They can be quite advanced once you get into formulas and things like that. But for them, all what we're doing is we're setting a criteria. So in this case, what we're doing is we're looking at invoices. We just want to see the headline information from invoices, which is where the main line is true comes in. We only want to see invoice transactions, and we don't want ones that have been rejected or are still pending approval. And in this case, we're going to be reporting on sales by class, which is like a product range in this demo system that we use for this one. So we only want to see things that have been assigned to a particular class. You then pick your results. So this is what you want to see when you run the save search. And in this case, we're doing a summarized version. So we want to summarize the transaction amount by the class and just see a total per class here. There's lots of other options in terms of how you want to format the report. One of the ones just to highlight was one of the things that I learned or probably relearned recently, so it's a while since I did the training on the training, is that you've got this output type option here. And if you choose normal, then the save search looks like a report. You'll see the figures. So you'll see the classes, you'll see the numbers that make up that report. But there's an option to change that to graph. And what that means is that this save search will automatically be a visualization of the data rather than just the numbers themselves. So this is a quick way to give you a kind of interactive visualization that can be used for dashboards as well. And just to show you the difference there, this is the save search as it looks when you choose normal. So you've just got the list of classes down the left, you've got the sum of amount on the right, and that gives you really good information. You can drill it down into the detail from there. You can pull that onto your dashboard. You could have it on tabs within the system as well. And it's got default filters there that you can then interact with when you run that save search. However, if you choose the graph option, then you get, as I say, an instant visualization of the same data. So it tells you more about the information. It means you can compare things easier, see it in that format, and still get the ability to filter and see that as well. So that's a quick way to get a nice comparative graph onto your dashboard as well. That then brings us on to scorecards. So scorecards are essentially a way to take multiple save searches or KPIs and then analyze them across multiple time periods, compare them to each other, all within one view. And you get a few of these out the box as examples. This is one here that is a financial scorecard. So you'll see when we zoom in, you'll see that there's lots of financial KPIs there, but they're all getting compared for different time periods. Some of these are comparing the certain KPIs to the ones above as well to do comparatives, like the percentage of our income as versus our revenue, for example. So that saves you having to set up save searches for every calculation in there, because within this scorecard you can say I want to add a line that compares the line above to the line above that and create a ratio, which is really powerful for getting into the more of the business intelligence side of being able to analyze performance and output in here. Another example here is the warehouse operations scorecard. So this one is looking at more comparing financial information about orders and fulfillments going through the warehouse. So it can automatically calculate. So we've got a save search in the first row there for the value of the sales orders, a save search then that shows the number of sales orders for the same period, and then the third line then works out the average value per order for you for the same periods there. So you just see that trend. There'll be an option to pop up a trend graph for each of these options there as well. So it gives you that all-in-one KPI scorecard to give you lots of insight without having to go through lots of different reports to find it. Again, all standard, can all be configured just using Saved Searches and a bit of setup of the scorecards themselves. And then the last standard option I want to cover is our SuiteAnalytics workbooks. So this is a tool that we've adopted quite heavily internally, especially on the sales and marketing side for looking at the analysis of how we are doing on our CRM system. What the workbooks feature is it's a reporting and an analytics tool. Just takes what we've discussed so far to another level in terms of building collections of reports, which are the workbooks in the name. And they're made up of different types of charts to allow you to do a bit of a more detailed analysis, again, without having to jump between lots of different reports to do so. So the features that are included within the SuiteAnalytics workbooks are things like being able to build a data set. So that's similar to what we saw within the Saved Searches there, which was the ability to define a criteria to choose the data that you want to report on. And that can be filtered, you can rename columns, you can do formulas and calculations within that data set. Excuse me. The difference here that was one of the improvements that was made to the analytics workbooks a few releases back was that they added the ability to link data sets together. So what this allows you to do is to take different sets of data which maybe don't naturally have links within the database already. So maybe unrelated information that you want to start combining to look at some trends or analysis of how that data relates to each other. Now within that as well, you can add your own formulas and calculations. So it might be looking at averaging out information or doing calculations over certain periods within the data set. So it's pre-populated for users to use in their reports as well. This then allows you to present data in different formats. So first of all, tables, just lists of information that highlight the data within the data set. Pivot tables. So just now, if you're not using this just now, you might be doing Saved Searches, taking them out to Excel or reports out to Excel and then building your own pivot tables to be able to slice and dice the data to be able to actually interact with that and see how the data looks across different classifications and different time periods. Because Excel gives you that extra degree of flexibility, this tool allows you to do it within the system instead of having to export it out. And then we have the visualization, so being able to do line, bar, and column charts to visualize the information that's in the data sets as well. Once you have that information in the workbooks, then you can also export that out to Excel or a CSV format, or if it's a chart, you can export it to an image as well. So that allows you to facilitate external reporting, but based on reports that have been generated within the system that can be shared with other users to view live as well. What you can also do is once you've built your workbooks, you can pull the charts through onto your dashboard. So with this advanced tool, it means that you then take your dashboards to another level as well because you're able to present this information on your home dashboard or other dashboards to see as soon as you log in and be able to interact with it and then drill to the detail from the dashboards as well. So in terms of accessing the workbooks, every user should be able to see an analytics tab within their interface in NetSuite. When you click on that, it will take you to the workbooks tab, where you'll see any workbooks that have been set up in your account. And each workbook is a collection of those reports that we mentioned previously in terms of the pivot tables, and charts. Now you get various templates. So you'll see in this screenshot here, we've got some that have been created for this particular account, which have been shared with the user that I'm logged in as. But there's some other ones that are in there that are called templates. And these are ones that come out of the box from NetSuite. Some of them will vary based on the edition of NetSuite that you've got. So some of the more advanced editions of NetSuite that include manufacturing or distribution functionality, or the software editions which have specific functionality for those industries will also have workbooks available for those particular industry requirements as well. So you'll see in this one, this demo account that I used is a wholesale distribution version, and this one had 29 workbooks available to it. in there already straight away. So these can be used as templates with example data sets, reports, which is a great tool to get you up and running with your own reports as well. You can also set up your own data sets. Again, there will be templated ones provided out of the box, but you can create your own data sets as well. This is what the analytics workbooks would look like. This is an example of one of the predefined ones, which is a incoming and outgoing cash outlay workbook. So this is a cash flow related workbook that's in there. What this is doing is there's a data set has been built to look at AP and AR transactions, and just to work out when they would be due to be paid or received from the relevant customers and suppliers. And it then works out basically a cash flow forecast for those types of transactions in terms of looking at incoming and outbound cash transactions. So you'll see along the top we have different tabs. So in this particular one, we're looking at an AR inbound amount by week. So this is a forecast from the system from our AR, from our customers of what we're expecting to be paid within the different time ranges there, which are obviously we've got a lot coming in the current week, thankfully, which will keep us going for a while. But then we can see it's kind of variable and dropping down for the coming weeks as well. So we can then start to look at some of the other tabs to look into the detail of those transactions and where they're coming from, and obviously action things to take any action that we need to help with that cash flow. In terms of the designer here, we've got things like you can see the data set that's been used for this, and you can drill into that from here and make amendments to it and see what other data that could be exposed to this particular workbook. We've got the format of the report, which is a drag and drop interface, and that is the kind of difference you have with this and some of the other reports, and that it's a bit more flexible for the end user in terms of just being able to drag and drop the columns in that you want for your x-axis in the report, the series, which allows you to do side-by-side comparisons or a stacked chart in there as well, and then the measures as well. So it's very easy to build your own charts and pivot tables from there. And because you can have multiple tabs along the top there, it means you can switch between those tabs to see different information, change the filters, and use this as that's why it's called a workbook, because you can work in one set of reports to do the analysis that you want to see. This is then an example of a pivot from the same workbook. So this is a pivot table which is taking our same information. So this is the detail then behind the accounts receivable information by week, but it's now showing us it by customer and invoice transaction, showing me the amounts in a pivot table view. So I can see that the detail of it from this tab. The highlighted section there shows that you can, the first button there is you can export that to Excel. So although it's in the system and it's a pivot view, you can still take that out to Excel and do further analysis or sharing with it from there as well. And there's various other options for how you total that and view the reports as well. So the benefits we see of using the workbooks feature then, it gives you kind of live retail reporting, including on your dashboards, like I mentioned before, for users of NetSuite, rather than out-of-date reports. If you have to take the data out, create pivot tables, then it's not live anymore. It's based on that snapshot that you've taken out of the system. So this allows you to do it in the system. That means there is less reliance on exporting the data out if you do need to do a bit more complex or detailed analysis. So therefore, you should have more time to spend on the analysis itself and making some decisions. The ability to combine data that I mentioned before is a huge feature, because sometimes you get into a standard report or a saved search and you're looking for the tables or the fields that you want to include in it, and it's just not available, and that is fixed. So the ability to join up data sets means that you can change that, and you can essentially merge two different sets of data. So the examples we've seen that used before is if you've got multiple budgets set up as part of your budgeting, you can bring in multiple budgets by setting up different data sets for them and combine them with actuals. Maybe combining PO and invoice data. And one of the examples where NetSuite have actually utilized this in the standard product now is that some customers I know have adopted this already. There's a optional app you can install called Budget Validations and Expense Commitments. What that gives in terms of functionality is warnings when people are entering purchase transactions, if it's going to take them over their budget for the particular combination of, say, geocode, department, etc. But it also provides a workbook which allows you to then see your budget versus actual report but includes committed POs because it's all tied into that process of the POs that are in there as well. So it'll allow you to see a bit more insight into your budget, your actual in terms of posted transactions, but then any committed POs that have got the same combination of classification to see the actual remaining budget, including those. That's something we plan to do some communications or webinars on that particular feature at some point in time as well. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Also with the workbooks, you're going to be able to do quicker analysis of the data within the system. For example, if you use a stacked bar chart, so a lot of the other charts in the system are just standard one thing that you're analyzing at a time. A stacked bar chart allows you to stack up and split a bar by different criteria. So instead of looking at multiple charts, you can combine it into one, and that's great on your dashboard because then you get an overview of say a product range by product or a department by cost center type idea within one report. And just being able to slice and dice the data in that pivot table view as well. And as I mentioned before, it is more aligned with self-service report building for people that don't actually usually write reports because you've got a drag and drop interface similar to building a pivot table in Excel. So it is quicker to flex and amend reports on the fly. So where the example I gave with the report at the start, where you're doing a sales by industry snapshot, if I just wanted to quickly change that to sales by region, for example, I'd have to do a whole new report and change that, change how it's done and save it. With the workbooks, you can just drag and drop the new field that you want to have as a column and remove the other one, and then you can just refresh it and see the new information. So it's really good for analysing different dimensions. And then with those data sets and workbook templates, it means you've got a head start to create your own reports as well, and something that you can use from day one as well. So that brings me on to some of the more optional modules now. So we've covered the standard features that everyone gets access to within their NetSuite accounts, regardless of the version. With the next few features, these are options that people can add on to your NetSuite subscription, depending on the different use cases that you have for reporting. So these are the things you might have seen. There's always an acronym involved with these ones. Some of these have come out over time, so you might be familiar with the name, but not what it does. So wanted to give you an idea of the use cases of these kind of added value options, which are available to add for all customers as well. So the first one we have is a module which can be added, and it's a standard NetSuite option, which is called SuiteAnalytics Connect. I've put in brackets the ODBC. What this is, it allows you to extract NetSuite data out to external sources using a connector. In this case, the most common one that is used within this is the ODBC connector, which stands for Open Database Connectivity. The SuiteAnalytics Connect module does include other connector types. There's one called JDBC as well, which is used by other applications typically for developers. So when we're talking about data extraction, it tends to be this ODBC driver that most people use. So that's what we'll focus on today. So you'll see from the diagram there that the most common use case for this is to create reports in external data sources, but being able to actually refresh those reports from those data sources with NetSuite data, instead of having to go into NetSuite and export data and then manipulate it in an external tool. So you can see from the diagram that common systems that would use this are things like Microsoft Excel, Microsoft Power BI, and Microsoft SQL Server. A bit of a theme there with the Microsoft options, but it can be any tool that needs to analyze data or read data that supports an ODBC connection. So this is a piece of software that's installed on a server or a machine, connects to NetSuite, and then you point your external tool to the driver that is connected to NetSuite to pull out the data. This is used pretty heavily for things like creating board packs in Excel instead of having to export multiple reports out. So you might have different formats that we mentioned at the start, and the ability to create different reports in NetSuite in different formats. You might want to automate that by setting up an Excel model that pulls the data out. And what NetSuite have done is they've created data sources and views that allow you to do that easily. Instead of having to take out every transaction, there are views that are pre-aggregated data for financial reporting. This can also be used for sharing data with other systems, which again support an ODBC connection. So that'd be things like data warehouses or any other tools that would need to extract the data from NetSuite in this case, whether it's for reporting or other purposes. One of the use cases we've seen more recently is auditor access to NetSuite data. So your accountant or auditor might use a tool which they would use to help prepare the accounts and do all the checks needed as part of the audit process. Some of them can support a connection using the ODBC module. We've also seen it used for external backup solutions. So as part of the NetSuite subscription, there are backups taken and taken off site to make sure there's a restore point for any issues, which we've actually never seen happen, touch wood. But some customers would use external backup solutions to make sure the data has been backed up externally as well, and some of them would potentially use the ODBC connection to access that data and do the backups itself. It's worth pointing out that the data flow is one way, so this isn't an integration tool, it is a connector to pull data out of NetSuite and then populate these external sources. And this is used by some solutions out there in the market, which we'll cover later on in terms of third-party options. So Solution 7, for example, which I know quite a few of our customers use already for Excel reporting, utilizes the ODBC connector to pull out the data, and then they have their own functions and shortcuts and functionality within Excel to use that to provide a solution for financial reporting. So this one's quite succinct in terms of use cases there. It is one-way access to data for external solutions. The next option takes us to a whole other level of solution. And this is us into the options that came about since Oracle acquired NetSuite back in 2016. That has given NetSuite customers access to Oracle's tech stack, which traditionally would probably be perceived as for enterprise level, but has been brought to the NetSuite market to allow NetSuite users to take advantage of that extra level of functionality. And this is really when the topic of the webinar in terms of next level reporting. This is where we get into the absolute next level. So the first one we've got here is NetSuite Analytics Warehouse, which is known as NSAW or NSAW if you turn it into a word. So you might hear it referred to as a few things like that. But that's what this is. It's an analytics solution. But you may look at that and say, right, well, it's a dashboard tool. That is true, but this is actually a data warehouse solution as well, with a data warehouse essentially being a place to store and aggregate and manipulate data before you start reporting on it to make it more efficient and combine sources, data from different sources as well. So it's cloud-based. They've created a pre-built solution for NetSuite data. So if you add the Analytics Warehouse module onto your subscription, then there's a connector that pulls transactional data, records, opportunities, all that kind of information through into pre-built dashboards within the Analytics Warehouse solution. But because it is essentially a standalone business intelligence solution, you can also pull data from other sources into this as well. So this is a use case for that, which we'll cover in a second. I mentioned at the start about AI. This is one of the areas in particular where AI already is in place and is going to become even more developed in terms of predictive analytics and telling you information about your data without you having to do that analysis yourself, which is great, but scary as well. And this dashboard that's on the screen there is an example of that, where it's looking at predictive analytics on late payments and the impact on cash flow of that. So kind of related to what we looked at in the workbooks, where we're looking at what the forecast was for the cash that we're expecting in from customers. This takes it to that next level, and it's basically doing a bit of analysis and prediction on who's going to pay us late, what that impact that would have on the actual cash flow, rather than just looking at factual information in NetSuite, which is what is the due date of a transaction. So it's getting into that what if scenario kind of analytical analysis in there. Now, when we first saw the Analytics Warehouse, we said, that's great, it's another BI tool, it's dashboard, it's going to get great insight into information. There's pre-built things in there. But there's some other use cases as well that we found as we looked into the solution in a bit more detail. So this is kind of summarized here, and I'll take you through these. So the first one is actually really powerful, especially for customers that are newer to NetSuite and still have access to their previous finance or ERP system, because there's a use case for the analytics warehouse where you can actually bring in detailed transactional data from your old legacy system, and use case number one there. So instead of keeping that system in place, then you can migrate the data out into the analytics warehouse, data warehouse, and then combine that with your live NetSuite data to be able to do historical analysis combined with your data from the point you went live with NetSuite. It also means you can potentially get rid of IT or licensing costs associated with that legacy system that you might have migrated from. Moving on to use case number two is that you could then potentially add data from other NetSuite, non-NetSuite systems. So CRM systems, e-commerce systems, things, there's pre-built connectors for things like Google Analytics and things like that in terms of just combining data that you'd be using across the business into one system for analytics. So you're combining financial and ERP information with CRM and e-commerce information, for example. That should then allow you to consolidate any reporting tools you're maybe using for those solutions or existing data warehouse solutions into one solution here with NetSuite Analytics Warehouse. Again, to just cut down the number of tools being used and the costs associated with that. And then that gets you into the benefits of that in terms of being able to drive better decisions by having one analytics solution across the business. And then finally, number five is getting that insight by having industry-specific visualizations. So again, pre-built dashboards for different industries are available within the analytics warehouse. And then getting into the AI side of things with those predictive analytics and insights into data as well. So these are a few of the example dashboards in there. So we're looking at things like sales trends or margins, supplier or vendor performance as well. We're looking at spend management, delivery performance from suppliers as well. And if you're a stock-based business, then looking at your inventory valuation. So it's getting into that extra level of analysis to make better decisions on these areas. There's various other pre-built dashboards for financial management as well, like the cash flow one that we saw at the start as well. In terms of the AI side of things within NetSuite Analytics Warehouse, some of the examples of that are insights into data. So traditionally you would create your charts and then you would look at them and trying to analyze it and take your own insights, where NSAW is going now is actually to find insights for you. So there's an example there of a couple of charts that have been created, and the system is essentially identifying some insights for you and explaining that information to give you a shortcut essentially into taking what you need to take from that information. The other one is then explaining data. So there's some examples here of basically looking at some information and trying to explain why certain patterns occur or why certain outcomes occur here. So some specific functionality there to take that information. The example here is just based on kind of age and marital status of consumers, in terms of behavior. One of the things that we probably look at for us is things like what affects win rates and deals. If we're working on certain types of opportunities, then is it the source it comes from? Is it the industry? That kind of thing. That kind of is where things are going now, where these systems are going to basically explain that information for you just by looking at the data, which is great. And then we get into the kind of predictive side of things as well. So we saw at the start there was a prediction on which customers are going to pay late and what the impact would have on cash flow. There's a few default models within NSAW, predictive applications, and ones related to warehouse management as well in terms of demand. This example here is a wizard that you run through, which is you want to look at analysis of certain data to try and identify churn. So we're looking at what is the risk of cancellation with certain types of customers or within a certain time period based on historical trends. So there's a pre-built predictive application there, which is going to allow you to run different scenarios and say, based on this information, what is the predicted cancellation rate of our contracts or customers or whatever the metric might be over the next 12 months in this scenario. And that's then going to give us analysis on what the predicted cancellations are going to be, which customers are most at risk, what types of customers, etc., as part of an out-the-box routine. And that's using the AI to learn about the data and come up with the ways of modeling that for you. So this is a great step forward. It's relatively new to the NetSuite ecosystem. NetSuite are pushing it pretty hard and asking customers to have a look at it, and we would encourage it with some great use cases as you've seen here. And they also have a edition of this which is fairly cost effective to get up and running with, and a special offer which we'll cover at the end of the session as well in terms of getting this set up. Okay, so on to the kind of final section of the NetSuite options then, which is Enterprise Performance Management, also known as EPM. Now, what EPM is, it's a new name for a collection of modules which have been available, some of which have been available for quite some time, but again came as part of the Oracle acquisition and providing access to the wider tech stack. Now, these are a set of applications which have been integrated in NetSuite, which again are related to reporting, but this now is more into the kind of financial planning and performance management in terms of reporting on performance across the business mainly from a financial perspective. So currently available in the UK as part of the EPM package are NetSuite Planning and Budgeting, also known as NSPB. NSPB has been available for quite a few years now. A few of our customers have adopted it, and essentially, as it says in the name, it's a planning and budgeting tool for NetSuite. You also now have, which has been available for the last year or two, NetSuite Account Reconciliation as a financial reconciliation tool. But EPM is being expanded out and gradually be extended out to cover things like financial close management and consolidation, so a more sophisticated process for closing out the periods and year end. Tax reporting, to just give a bit more detailed insight into tax and the reporting impact of that. Narrative reporting in terms of producing reports and adding narrative, and this is again an area where AI is going to be heavily used, where it will take your financial statements and produce them and provide the narrative along with it based on what it can analyze and interpret about the data in the reports. And then one relating specifically to profitability and cost management from a cost accounting perspective as well. So these will be gradually rolled out into the EPM package over time. So in terms of the ones available to UK customers at the moment, we have planning and budgeting. So what this gives you is again a dedicated module, so it's kind of standalone module, which is used for planning, budgeting, and forecasting. It is based on Hyperion and Nest-based technology, which again was our Oracle acquisition. Some of you may have used that in previous roles for budgeting and planning as well. So this is a NetSuite version of that technology. And your actuals data is synced up from NetSuite into this to allow you to do the planning process a lot quicker based on that actual information. And what this is aiming to do is replace complex Excel models where you've got a lack of control, maybe a lack of approvals, version control, things like that as well, by putting it into a system that has all of that built in. What this allows you to do is things like operational expense planning and reporting, workforce planning, so looking at headcount and the impact of changes. So the best example of that recently has been the change in national insurance and minimum wage. Then that's something that you could build into the modeling within this application to show very quickly what a change in that would mean in terms of different scenarios. CapEx planning as well, looking at that from a planning perspective for your expenditure. Cash flow, again, predictive forecasting in here as well for the modeling side of things. And you can do things like top-down planning or bottom-up planning, depending on the process, the type of planning you want to do, and then come up with different versions, scenarios, approvals, and then the AI side of things kicks in when it comes to the modeling analysis and what-if scenarios as well. One of the key differentiators here for this is that it also has then Microsoft integration via the SmartView module. And that means that you can then connect this information to Excel and PowerPoint as well for presenting the data. And you can see some of the benefits on the right-hand side there of this module, in terms of if you have a detailed planning process you're going through every year when it gets to budgeting season, there's some stats there that can be cut down by around 38%. The accuracy of the forecasting increases pretty dramatically as well, and just the amount of time spent in creating reports like board packs and summaries for actual versus budget, everything like that is cut down significantly as well. So this is the kind of thing we're looking at within the planning and budgeting. So this is looking at a report which is showing over time our actual versus forecast in this case. And then again, the AI is kicking in here in terms of being able to give you an explanation of that here. So what that's telling us, automatically summarizing it, giving us insight into the data without us having to look at it and take our own conclusions. So this is telling us here that they're lower than the forecasted version by a certain percentage, and giving us comparisons to the values as well. And this is something that's coming in terms of AI, in terms of this is giving us those summaries for us. But one of the things we see with AI is that's going to happen is that you will be able to converse with your system, and basically ask it, how are we doing versus forecast? What is the top performing region? What's the top performing item? And it will work out the best report to show you and give you the insights as well. That's I think what the future looks like in terms of AI and reporting within the ERP sphere. The last part of this is then the NetSuite account reconciliation. So this gives another module which allows you to streamline the reconciliation process. So this is your GL and balance sheet reconciliation process. So it allows you to set tasks across different people that have been involved in that, run reconciliation processes and matching, and then review that as well. So if this is a time-consuming process, lots of people involved, lots of different entities, lots of different transaction types, then this is a tool that can significantly cut down the time taken to run that reconciliation process. And that essentially then allows you to close your periods quicker, and also helps with reporting standards and audits by cutting down the risk of issues and missing information in the system as well. So that concludes the NetSuite options. I know we've covered quite a lot, and as I say, today was more about the kind of awareness of what's available and potential use cases. We can arrange follow-up sessions on all of these for you if you're interested. We have the third-party reporting options just to close off, just to say if within everything we've covered, that hopefully from what I've showed you there, there's lots of options available that you're not using already, or you could take advantage of or use to a better extent. But if not, you may need to look into maybe a third party option, or you might be using an external reporting solution already and maybe need to get that connected up to NetSuite. So there's loads of options out there that fit into that category, whether they're reporting tools or connectors in there. We partner with Zone & Co. For various applications that extend NetSuite, fill in gaps or provide added value modules. And some of them now relate to reporting. So they recently acquired Solution 7, which I mentioned before, which is an Excel-based financial reporting tool that is now part of the Zone family. So that gives you the reporting in Excel and the budgeting in Excel, and that uses the ODBC connector that I mentioned before. Anybody I know that's used that loves it, but it is an Excel tool, so you don't get the same controls as a dedicated planning and budgeting tool, for example, like NetSuite planning budgeting. You also have Zone Reporting. Zone Reporting is a Power BI solution. So anybody that uses Power BI, Zone have created a set of pre-built dashboards in various areas. So there's financial management, there's one for SaaS companies, so people obviously selling software contracts. There's distribution models, again, similar to the analytics warehouse that we mentioned, but built in Power BI. So if you have Power BI already in place and maybe can't change that, then Zone Reporting can provide you with some pre-built dashboards with that connection to the NetSuite data through their solution. And then also part of Zone is the Tactical Connect. And what this is just a connector. So if you use any kind of reporting tool or other system that needs to connect to NetSuite data, but maybe doesn't support ODBC. It has to be maybe a direct connection. Then Tactical Connect can provide that bridge as well. So these are just, this is just three of, numerous, probably hundreds of options out there. We'd be happy to discuss specific requirements to see if there's an option that fits requirements better than any of these other NetSuite options that we've covered today. So just to wrap up then, in terms of how can you learn more about these options, as I say today wasn't training, but just to give you a bit of awareness on the options. So for the standard reporting options, there's loads of content in the online help and suite answers on these in terms of tutorials and options as you go through. There's kind of guided learning as you go through NetSuite, and the analytics in particular has some guided product tools within that. We can, of course, provide training on any of these features or even demos if it's a particular function that you want to look at within the standard reporting within NetSuite. We're happy to discuss any training requirements you may have. But if you're looking to do a bit of self-study, then again, if quite a few customers have this already, but there is an option to sign up for the Learning Cloud Support Pass with NetSuite, which gives you on-demand online training on basically all areas of NetSuite for all of your NetSuite users. So they can access training on functionality, on reporting, on system admin, if that's their role, and that can be controlled by role as well. For the optional modules that we've mentioned there, essentially just a case of contacting your account manager at Eureka Solutions just to set up a review call, just to check the most relevant option, make sure we're going down the right route, and then we can set up a demo. The analytics warehouse, the EPM, are currently implemented by a specialist team at Oracle, so we work with them closely to work on that. And that brings me on to the final slide, just to let you know that there are some offers at the moment. I mentioned previously about the NSAW activation. So anybody who attended the recent Suite Connect conference would have seen that they are offering certain incentives to attendees of the conference. So that includes a 30% discount on the Learning Cloud Support Pass that I mentioned before, the free activation of NetSuite Analytics Warehouse. So that involves getting the connection set up to NetSuite, pushing your data through, and then you can get going with the pre-built dashboards in there, and then build on it over time if you want to. So that is an offer there. And they are also offering a quick start implementation of the NetSuite planning and budgeting module as well, which has a kind of set scope to get you up and running with the basics of the planning side too. So these are offers for anybody who attended Suite Connect and up until the end of Oracle's year end, the end of May. So just let us know if that's of interest. And I guess just to wrap up in the last, as we come to the end of the session, just thank you very much for taking the time to listen to me again today. And hopefully it was useful. And yeah, thanks very much.